Hey guys, real quick, I want to mention that this video is going to be talking about music and the relation that different types of music have to us. So this is basically the essence of subjective, at least to some people. I'm going to try my best to be objective, but this is a tough topic, so please forgive me if I mess something up. As Hytale fans await the release of Hytale, a lot of people gravitate towards release speculation, leaks, news, and other related content. But I haven't seen as much coverage or interest in how Hytale's music will impact the game, and I think the Hytale community would benefit from taking a closer look at what makes Hytale's music so great, and almost perfect for the style of game it's in. I'm saying almost perfect because there's really no way to make a perfect soundtrack for any game. So I've made this video to hopefully help grow an understanding of Hytale's music for both you and myself. Let's get started. When I was thinking about Hytale's soundtrack and trying to think of the factors that would make it best complement the game it was made for, I've constantly come back to Minecraft's soundtrack. This is partially because I have the most experience with Minecraft's soundtrack out of any game I've played, but also because since Minecraft at root is a pretty similar game to Hytale, it has an excellent soundtrack to use for comparison purposes. So I'll be referencing it a lot for that reason. So, what makes Hytale's soundtrack so great for the game? Well, if you don't want to do any analysis at all, you can just go and listen to the soundtrack and you'll probably think something like, "This sounds great," or "I really like how this is composed." Or theoretically, you could hate the soundtrack. In which case, please, tell me why in the world you do. The soundtrack is great! But if you want to do some more in-depth thinking, think for a second about this soundtrack in comparison to Minecraft's. Minecraft's soundtrack tends to be more tightly structured in general, by which I mean it tends to focus on a particular melody or musical idea and builds on that melody or musical idea throughout each of the tracks, like a piano piece or a short song might. You can see this best in the tracks, I don't even know how to pronounce that, Sweden, Minecraft, and some others. There are of course exceptions, but most of the iconic Minecraft songs have a pretty straightforward structure. And even when they do depart from a theme, it's usually not more than once. In Hytale's soundtrack, however, there are definite, sometimes dramatic changes in mood, usually at least a few times each track. And even when these changes aren't very notable, in my opinion, the soundtrack keeps a very loose hold to the original musical idea. This is very intentional according to the composer of Hytale's soundtrack, Oscar Garvin, who said in one of the Hytale blog posts centered around music, "Since the world is procedurally generated, I can't know exactly where the player will be or what they will be doing, but I wanted it to feel cinematic, in the vein of movie soundtracks. I tried to create changing moods that made the player feel like they're on a journey." I've composed a couple little pieces of music to show you what I mean. I don't want to use official Hytale or Minecraft music because they're copyrighted, so I'm going to try to make this quick and use my own music. The first piece is generally modeled after the structure of Minecraft songs, Minecraft, and Sweden. You can hear in the intro a quiet melody that will slowly get louder and more defined. Then the melody will take its basic form, not too quiet, not too loud. After a bit of this, more instruments are layered on top of the piano with different, slower melodies, but still staying within the key and idea of the music. Then there will be a climax, and finally a slow wind down to the track. This song, like Minecraft and Sweden, is all dependent on one main musical thought. Which is totally okay, but my point is that it's different than the currently released songs in the Hytale OST, which are more musically complex and change themes more often. To show you what I mean, here's a Hytale themed song I'm currently working on. You can hear in the intro a definite suspenseful theme with pulsating tremolo strings. Then the mood shifts into a more resigned and simple cello bit. Then it shifts again into a more moving rather than suspenseful part, and towards the end builds up tension. This isn't a perfect example of Hytale's OST style, but I hope you've gotten the gist of what I'm trying to show with these pieces. Minecraft's soundtrack tends to be more repetitive. Hytale's shifts more often. As I've said a couple of times already, there are of course exceptions to this. I'm just trying to give a general example. So moving on from that point, another thing that really improves Hytale's soundtrack, at least in my opinion, is that it's not only designed with a thought going towards the fact that it's a procedurally generated game, but different music tracks are dedicated to different environmental zones. Zone 1's music is very upbeat, like exploring the rolling plains of Zone 1 would be, but Zone 2's music reflects more the suspense and danger of the desert, and in the case of Gaia's Lament, actual sadness. There are currently no OSTs released for any of the other 4 zones, but you can probably expect them to get more and more intense, considering Zone 3 is a snowy wasteland, and Zone 4 looks like something out of a nightmare. One final thing I've thought of about Hytale's soundtrack is that, unlike Minecraft, the songs are made out of the sounds of real instruments. I know Minecraft has strings and piano, but if you listen to the soundtrack, there are a lot more synths too. There is something different about having essentially an orchestra in your soundtrack rather than a piano and some extra effects. Maybe it has to do with the fact that traditional orchestral instruments have been around for hundreds of years in Europe and America, so it's more familiar to someone from Europe or America. Maybe it has to do with the fact that most movies we watch lean heavily on orchestral instruments. Maybe it has to do with the huge range of synthesizers available today. Maybe that range leaves us open to things we don't exactly know how to interpret. It's interesting to think about. So, why do I think Hytale's music is such a great fit for the game? Its design philosophy is an excellent choice. Its attempt to musically represent procedurally generated environments is a really cool step in the development of video game music. Different music is dedicated to specific zones of the world, which is a really nice touch, and the music is relying so far on real orchestral instruments that bring a certain sense of familiarity that I'm sure will benefit the game. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like so that this content will climb up the enormous ladder of content constantly showering YouTube's algorithm. If you want to see more videos of mine when they come out, please consider subscribing, because if you don't, if you want to see more content of mine, you'll have to search to find it. How exhausting! And if you're still watching and think of something I didn't cover, have an idea for a topic I could cover, or really whatever, feel free to comment on this video. Alright, Funky out.